Right, welcome back to week two, weekly trade recap. We're just going to go through the trades Monday to Friday. Another good week this week. We were up 2 grand on the week, starting with a losing day on Monday. So, as you can see, the profile for Monday, Asian consolidation. London did sweep out the lows of Asia and move up. So, from that alone, we should have been bullish for the day, but we, for some reason, didn't. We saw that the new week opening gap opened downwards. Price then started to come back up into it, got above the closing price for last week. And then once we dropped down to the 1 minute chart, we've seen that in the minutes leading up to the start of the New York session, a lot of the highs that were made before the session opened were ran above. And then once we zoom in to the price, we can see big liquidity sweep, a move down, a lower high, and then a move back down below. So once we close below the previous low that was made, that's where I got in my first position. I just thought, you know what, we've made the sweep, let's go short. So we're in, we were up, but for the first position, I was only in for half a position size. So again, 250. I made my 1-to-1, but I didn't hit my £500. So this is the mistake I made on Friday that I should have credited this time. I should have just set my 500 risk and it would have been a winning trade. And then where we see this fair value gap, I tried to get in for some more to make out 500 and was ultimately stopped out for £500. What I should have done here is, as you can see, where these lows were then swept, in accordance with our bullish bias, we can see the gap was inversed. That 1 minute fair value gap, that would have been the best time to get in, either as it closes above the gap, or as you can see, it retests the gap and we could have been in there for profit. And as you can see, our 1-to-1 would have been hit with a stop loss below the fair value gap, all the way up to almost 3-to-1 risk to reward. So Monday we take an L, but we're going to bounce back from it. Right, we're now on to Tuesday's price action. Asian session was kind of manic. London, we had a lot more consolidation, so just above the high of Asia, but consolidating. So what we're looking for there is then the push downwards, because it's manipulation of the Asian session, but just without the distribution. But as you can see, as New York session opened, swept out London's high, inversed the 5 minute fair value gap, and then we came up and retested the fair value gap. That was my entry, stops above the high. Very just simple, beautiful price action, and it pays off nicely. So we get straight move down, straight in to take profit. We're out for 500. That's our 1-to-1 sorted. As you can see later on in the day, price does come up and retest the fair value gap and then moves down for a lot more, down to the Asian session lows. But we were happy taking our 1-to-1 for Wednesday. Now looking at Thursday's price action. Asian session, sort of consolidation. London session, a bit more consolidation. We did break below the lows and move upwards, but nothing too major. I would still consider it consolidation. And then we see in the New York session, sweep again of London, inverse that for value gap. And it was on the 1 minute that we executed on this trade. So as you can see, there was a lot of sort of jitter and almost a consolidation phase within that inverse value gap. But we then get our break below. On the retest of that gap, we're in. We set our stop loss above the consequent encouragement level of the gap because it was quite a big gap, and profits were smashed. An easy 1-to-1 again. As you can see, once again later on in the day, we do just see more respect of that gap, and we could have pushed down way below London lows, all the way down to a 6, almost 7-to-1 risk to reward. But again, we are happy with our 500 wins and we are taking those out. This is the actual trade for Thursday. We saw just more consolidation. The price action is so beautiful. If it's consolidating the whole way through and we see a sweep of those lows in the New York session, we're going bullish. We've seen the inverse for value gap on that 1 minute, first presented for value gap. As soon as we got the close out, where you can see here, the low, 23,089, I believe, and then the high of this, 092. So we are closing above it, And as soon as we retested that gap, we then entered, stops below the low, £500 smashed for our 1-to-1. As you can see, it would have pushed up to London highs for a 2.5-to-1. I don't need to say that I'm happy with what I get out of it. And then that brings us on to Friday. Again, look, it's just consolidating, just bopping about all the way until New York opens. When New York opens, it takes out quite a lot of the highs. We can see just at the end of the London session that it has swept the Asian high. So that was our symbol that we're just going to go sell off. So big push down once the high was swept. New York opens, comes back up into a premium. We then have a push down. After value gaps created, as soon as price tags into that, we're going short. So we're in short, and that sells us right down. So Thursday's trade passed our funded. Friday was the first real trade on the funded account where I can get paid out. But again, £500 was made. As you can see, a lot more to be gotten out of it. You can see entry first on the value gap, second entry we're in, and I just got out at 500, but price is pushing down very, very heavily. So a lot more money could have been made on Friday, which is something we need to look at. I need to look at, because what I do is when my price profit goes above 500, I let it go a little bit displaced and I move my stops to 500. I'm happy with it. That's what I want. But if I let the price go to 500 or 550 or 600 and take off 90% of the contract, I can then still have my entry at break even and have the potential for the price to drop off a lot more or go up a lot more and make a lot more out of the market. So something I need to look at for future trades. But again, a very profitable week. Last week 1,500, this week 2,000. So we can only hope for good things. But yeah, that's the trade recap, episode 2. We'll see you for the next one on Sunday.